so-called deadbeat dads, many accused of living it up while their wives and children have to scrape by. Well, that's the picture that's been widely painted. And while it's true in some cases, now there is a surprising discovery. John Stossel's report could change our whole point of view.
The sheriff's department, open the door.
I challenge the fathers of this country to love and care for their children.
What's the guy's name?
If your family has separated, you must pay your child support.
We've heard it again and again. So often fathers behave horribly, selfishly walking out on their kids.
These are folks that are just oblivious to their responsibility.
We heard many men just refuse to pay child support.
One person alone owed more than $37,000.
And right now I am begging and borrowing. I am living off of neighbors.
So while ex-wives and children struggle, men live it up.
But what we're about to tell you is not the usual story about those deadbeat dads, because it turns out that much of what we've heard about them is distorted.
The distortion began with U.S. Census data that said half of divorced fathers don't pay all the child support they owe, and with this book written by sociologist Lenore Weitzman. It's claimed that men prosper after divorce while women and children suffer terribly got lots of publicity.
Women and children suffer a 73% decline in their standard of living in the first year after divorce. Men, on the other hand, had a 42% increase.
These statistics shocked Arizona State University psychologist Sanford Braver, who wondered,
why are these divorced fathers acting so irresponsibly? How could a dad abandon his child?
So you believe this data about
Absolutely.
Fathers being villains?
Absolutely.
And you were just trying to figure out why.
Right. And I started realizing that there were some really gaping holes in what we thought we knew and why things were the way they were.
Braver then conducted a study of 400 divorces in one part of Arizona, the biggest federally funded study ever done on divorced dads. What he found was very different from conventional wisdom.
Divorced mothers commonly end up in poverty as a result of the appalling irresponsibility of dads who don't pay their child support. Men, on the other hand, make out like bandits.
Absolutely false.
Science journalist Diane O'Connell joined Braver's project after he'd started compiling data that contradicted Weitzman's findings.
It really opened my eyes that there was another side of the story.
Now O'Connell and Braver have written this book about what they say are myths about divorced dads. Myths like the famous Weitzman statistic about men's living standards increasing while women's declined 73%.
And that figure was a mistake, the result of a mathematical error.
A math mistake.
Reversing a couple of figures.
But this is cited everywhere. 348 social science articles, 250 law review articles, 24 appeals court cases. It's a famous statistic.
And it's wrong.
Weitzman wouldn't talk to us, but she does now admit that she made a mistake in the math. She says it was the fault of her computer analyst. It did take her more than 10 years to admit the mistake. So, what's the truth? Who does make out best financially after divorce?
Well, here's the graph from Weitzman's book versus what other researchers discovered when they corrected the math mistake. Then Braver included the cost of father's visitation and tax breaks for moms.
Our results show that men and women come out almost exactly equally.
And what about that census data about so many dads being deadbeats?
Another widespread belief is that most divorced fathers selfishly refuse to pay their child support. True?
No, it's not true at all.
Hi, I'm Mia from the U.S. Census Bureau.
The Census Bureau gave us this tape to illustrate how they get their information.
Every couple years, the census sends workers out to people's homes to ask, is child support being paid? They've found that half the time it isn't.
Yeah, but who are they asking? They're asking the mothers. They're not asking the fathers.
They're
getting one side of the story.
Amazingly, the government bases all its data on child support on questions asked of just one of the parents.
They're asking the parent who has custody.
Exactly.
And 90% of the time, that's the mother.
Everything we knew about non-custodial fathers, it turns out, we knew from custodial mothers.
Dan Weinberg heads the census division that collects child support data.
So the census worker says, how much in child support payments were you supposed to receive this year? And the woman remembers.
Yes.
How much did you actually receive? I just have a hard time believing that these people, many of whom are angry, are going to give honest answers.
Actually, the anger may help them remember what they're supposed to receive.
Why not go to the man and ask, is it true?
We would be violating the confidentiality of the custodial mother.
Is there any cross-check?
No, we don't check any of them.
But wouldn't they lie just because they're mad at the man?
People are basically honest.
When Braver in his study asked both parents, he found much higher levels of child support paid, on average a 70% compliance rate. Another myth is that many divorced dads never bother to see their children. The media calls them runaway dads. But Braver says the overwhelming majority of recently divorced dads do see their kids, or try to. And when they don't, he says, there's often a good reason. Consider Bob's story, which 2020 presented years ago.
Hello?
It's me. Could I speak to please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can I speak to
We found that a surprising number of fathers were impeded in their efforts. The mother just simply said, no, can't see your kid.
The baby's ready to go out?
Bob's ex-wife didn't say that, but Bob says she used her time with the kids to poison the kids' minds against him. He allowed a 2020 hidden camera to follow him as he tried to visit his children. Though Bob had court-ordered visitation, he says he rarely got to spend the day with his 5 kids.
Would you like to go out with me today?
No.
Huh?
No.
How about you?
The family court judge ordered Bob's ex-wife to encourage visitation, but orders like that are rarely enforced.
Guys, come on, you want to come in?
And that's it? I mean, I don't get them at all today. I've wasted a day to come down here.
Both of them. They are free to say yes or no.
How can a 5-year-old be free to say yes or no? She needs her mother's intervention.
No.
His ex-wife didn't want to be interviewed, but denies she ever tried to turn the kids against their father. She says they were afraid of him. But the parent who has custody does have enormous power to influence the children.
I know you don't understand any of this mess, okay? But sometime when you get a little bit older, you're going to understand. I hope. I still love you. I'm still your dad, and I'm never going to give up trying to see you guys, all right? All right? Can you understand that? Hey, thanks. Really great.
Sometimes you have to look at these things from the mind of a 5 or a 6 or a 7-year-old. He doesn't want to lose his other support, namely his mother. So he's going to do, or she's going to do, everything in their power to do what Mommy wants. It's been a horror. It's been a living horror.
Hey, I love you.
This is why I've all but given up on coming. Maybe I have lost them already, but I don't know it yet.
Shortly after this broadcast, Bob did give up. He kept paying child support, but he moved out of state. 6 months later, one of his sons was killed in a bicycle accident. Last winter, Bob saw all his children for the first time in 15 years when his oldest daughter asked him to give her away at her wedding. Would that long estrangement have been avoided if the court order against the mother had been aggressively enforced?
There's no bite to the law.
And the assumption
what are they going to do to enforce it? They can't garnish her wages the way the government can garnish a father's wages if he doesn't pay child support. There is no legal recourse. They're not going to throw the mother in jail.
201 to 211.
They do throw dads in jail.
Can you come to the door, Sheriff's Department?
The terrible reputation of the deadbeat dad has led America to create an extraordinary campaign against the deadbeat. Thousands of deputies, thousands of arrests, an enormous child support bureaucracy chasing the dads. Just a mother's word that the man hasn't paid sometimes starts a process that leads to his bank accounts and property being seized, or jail time.
Well, I really have no choice but to incarcerate you until you come up with a reasonable payment.
Family Court Judge Herbert Glickman says the system is not biased against dads.
But the law is clear in just about every state that the obligation to pay child support is unrelated to the right to have visitation with the children.
They have to pay support even if she's not letting them in.
That is true. That is true.
And they get to the point when they say, well, I give up. What am I, just a wallet? And so that's when they begin to drop out of their kids' lives.
And of course we know that's terrible for the kids. So it's a vicious circle. We want dads to be with their kids, but the system focuses on getting money from the dads. not time. And that drives many fathers away.
Society wants to blame fathers. Society wants to see fathers as bad guys.
You can't blame mothers. It's not politically correct to blame mothers, and you certainly cannot blame the children, so who's left? Well, fathers, males, are an easy target.
But there are lots of
absolutely.
bad guys.
Yes, there are. But they are not the majority. And they are not the only story, but they're the ones that we hear about.
So from census data that's questionable, from an influential book that was just wrong, we have the image of the terrible dad, which reinforces a system that Braver says drives fathers away.
We are depriving children of a second parent. We're hurting the people who deserve the most help, the children.
I think, John, most of us would agree that it's better if a child has two parents, and that even if you're divorced, you shouldn't use your anger for one or the other parent to keep the child from seeing him. However, it's hard for me to believe that most fathers are financially responsible, because I hear from so many women who are struggling.
You think because you're a woman, you find this hard to believe?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I can see your point. I believe that more women are more caring about children, and more men than women behave selfishly. But I think this data is accurate, and most men are responsible. And if this misinformation has led kids to be deprived of a second parent, that's terrible.
You're right, and you know, and that, I guess I'll just have to change my tune.
Good.
Well, if you would like to chat with Sanford Braver, the psychologist in our report, he will be available Monday afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern Time on our website at abcnews.com. We'll be right back.